Morning. Today's a pretty big day here at Wishwell Farms. Our very first greenhouse tomato planting of 2025. Let's take a look at the plants. They're looking pretty nice. Let me turn off these fans so you can hear me good. I'm pretty happy with how these plants turned out. So the plants still have some varying sizes. Like there's one we won't plant, and there's a little one that's only like 10 inches tall. But many of them are 13 to 15 inches tall now, and definitely ready to go. Oh, beautiful. Really happy with how they turned out. This may be the first time ever that we have not put bamboo stakes down in the rock wool cubes and clipped them to the plants. Usually the plants are starting to fall over, but maybe it's the different fertilizer I used this year, the starter fertilizer. I bet it's the LED lights that I grew them under when they were little seedlings. But they're not falling over. They're staying up pretty good. Now we're gonna be loading them into little wagons to roll them down to the main greenhouse. Hopefully the jostling around and bouncing around of rolling them down there won't make them fall over. But if they do, I have clips and bamboo stakes down in the other greenhouse ready to go, and that way we can stake up the ones that do fall over. But I'm pretty confident most of them are gonna stand up pretty nice during this transition from the starter house down to the greenhouse number one, the tall house we call it. All right, turn those fans back on, and I'm gonna go show you where we are planting these. Just in case you happen to be new to my channel and don't know anything about what we do here at Wishwell Farms, we start off our season with hydroponic greenhouse tomatoes. This is our greenhouse number one. We call it our tall house because it's 18 feet tall. It holds 615 plants, and that is the one we're planting today. In about 2 weeks, we'll be planting greenhouse number two. We call it our long house because it's 148 feet long. It holds 1,000 plants. And then a week or two after that, we'll be planting the small house, and it holds 500 plants. It's a 21 by 96. And then finally, we'll be putting a small planting down there, two different plantings. Grape tomatoes, we call it our grape house, and that's gonna be going in half of it, and the other half will be determinate field tomatoes that we will be growing hydroponically, kind of an experiment. All right, let's step into greenhouse number one here, and I'll show you what we got going on. So we are ready to go in here. It's a little chilly. I don't have the heat turned on yet, but I am keeping the temperature at 40 degrees in here, so nothing cracks when it does dip into the 20s, which has been pretty cold. It's about 20 some degrees this morning. But the sun is out. Things ought to warm up in here nicely in the next hour before we start transplanting. I did fire up the boiler to start warming up the buckets a little bit. We want to keep those at 70 degrees. So in about an hour, Emma and my son Gavin will be here to help me plant those tomatoes in these Dutch Bato Buckets. We have about 720 plants to choose from, and we will pick 615 of the biggest, best, and strongest and healthiest looking plants to put in the Dutch Bato Buckets. Now, because it is so chilly this morning, I don't feel comfortable moving plants from one greenhouse to another when it's like 20 degrees. But the sun's out and it's calm, and it's supposed to be above 30 degrees by 9 a.m. So I think at that point, it should be safe to have them outside for 30 or 40 seconds, whatever it takes to shuttle them to the other greenhouse. I don't like to bring them outside when it's below freezing, but we have to get this done today. It's gonna be windy and rainy here the next couple days, so today's the perfect day. But while we're waiting for things to warm up, we're gonna be bringing perlite into greenhouse number two. We have 500 buckets in here, and it's probably gonna take about 40 to 45 bags of perlite to fill these all up. I don't know if we'll get to dumping them today, but we are gonna get them all spread out down the rows so it's ready to go. So that'll keep us busy for a little bit. And then we have one other little job down here in the grape house to keep us busy while we're waiting for it to warm up. So in the grape tomato greenhouse, we use these coconut core bags, grow bags. And we got to lay out 27 of them down each row. You can see I did one row already. We have 6 rows in here, but with 3 of us, it's only going to take like 5 or 10 minutes to lay these out. And then I was looking at this the other day. When it rains really hard, I've been having water come into the greenhouse and pool up right there and right here. I really should be ripping up this ground cover and bringing a couple loads of gravel in, some wheelbarrow loads of gravel. When we built this, it just ended up being a little higher right there than it is right here, unfortunately. A design flaw on my part. But I think if I put a little bit of gravel right there, we can prevent that from happening so bad. You can see in here I have all the drip lines hung up off the ground to make it easier to clean. So we will drop these all down once we get the grow bags all laid out, and then we'll get those hydrated. They come compressed and dry. They have to be rehydrated. And we will stick these drippers, one in every hole or opening of the grow bag. And then whichever ones don't hydrate, we know those are either plugged or bad drippers, and we will replace those. So we're gonna have 3 rows of grape tomatoes in here and 3 rows of determinate field tomatoes. And they are strung up using the Florida weave system in here. We do not have an overhead trellis system to grow indeterminates like in the other greenhouses. All right, we have all of the Cocoa Core grow bags laid out and ready to go for rehydrating. And I mentioned this in a prior video that it's a different brand than I normally get, Botanicor. I don't know where they're out of. Producers of quality cocoa peat. So it makes me wonder if it's a mixture of Cocoa Core, which is just coconut husk, and peat, but they look exactly the same as the ones I've got in the past, so maybe they just also make peat. Another thing I noticed that is slightly different on this year's brand are the slits in the bottom of the bag. I don't know if I like that or not, because it's going to automatically allow, the good part is that it's going to automatically allow the bags to drain if they get too much water, and it won't oversaturate the cube and maybe drown the plant roots, if you know what I mean. So usually I have to come through here and make my own slits, but I usually make them about 1 inch up on the bag, so there's kind of always a reservoir of water in there. But with these slits on the bottom of the bag, there will never be a reservoir of water. So it's going to make it a little harder for me to test the pH and the EC. But it is what it is. Hopefully they work out well. All right, we are finished in the grape house for the rest of this week. Next week, we'll be back out here transplanting grape tomatoes. And I just noticed that it is now cloudy out. It doesn't feel as cold. I'm sure it's getting close to 30 degrees. The wind has picked up a little bit, unfortunately, so that could cause some of the plants to fall over when we are transporting them from one greenhouse to the other. Hopefully, it won't be too bad. But the greenhouses have warmed up now that the sun has been out for a while earlier this morning. It's about 10 a.m., so it is time to get some transplanting done. All right, here we go. Yep, see how 2 of them fell over already?
Yeah, I just had 1 too.
We're gonna use the Ranger first instead of putting 4 in here and 4 in there. Usually we just take down 8 at a time, but I know they're gonna be bouncing all over the place with this frozen driveway. So we're gonna put like 9 in here or so and drive them down there quickly to the other greenhouse. You can see we have some small underdeveloped plants that have something wrong with them, but you know, so on this tray of 9, because I already took one out, there's only 5 good ones that we will plant. I've never had this happen before, but nothing I can do about it now. But I did do a count. Out of the 720 plants, we did have about 620 good ones, so I think we'll be okay, but we will be cutting it close. We're just quickly bringing them in, setting them on the ground, and we'll get them spread around later. Normally when the sun's out, it would have been over 70 degrees in here, but as you can see, it just dipped below 60, so I went ahead and turned the heat on. Like I said in past videos, we don't ever want it below 64 degrees in here, and I actually keep the root temperature at 70 or higher. So I fired up the heater, and I guess it's time to start burning some propane. Yeah, some of them are gonna fall over, it looks like. I've definitely seen it worse. And a lot of times they're 4 inches taller than this. So having shorter plants this year is keeping them from falling over so easy. The plants did not like that transport. A lot of them are starting to fall over.
I think they did better on the regular.
Yeah. See how they're just falling over. We'll have to put a bamboo stake. I mean, we could hang the tomato hooks and bring the string down right away, but as you can see, I haven't replaced all the tomato hooks yet because I was assuming I would have bamboo stakes on all these. We'll see how bad it is when we get them all in here. Make the decision then. All right, we're taking down the last of the variety Geronimo. And then we will move on to the variety Torero. So I only have 2 varieties that I'm planting today, Geronimo and Torero. I normally have Big Dina and Ondero, but Big Dina wasn't available when I needed it, and neither was Ondero. So unfortunately, we only have 2 varieties right now. So I don't like that because I don't like putting all my eggs in one basket, you know. I'd rather have 3 or 4 varieties, and Big Dina is my favorite variety by far, and I don't even have it this year. Again, I think there is some seed available finally out there, but it's too late now. I already purchased all my seed, spent like $3,500 on it, and it's basically all seeded except maybe our final planting. So we have what we have. So I'm just pulling the blue wagon down the row, unloading the plants along the buckets, and then we will start the transplanting process here shortly. All right, we're just getting started here, and this is the way they all should look. That is almost the perfect tomato plant right there. It's about 14, 15 inches tall, beautiful, and it's standing straight up by itself. It's nice and stout. Then we got some medium size, kind of puny looking plants here, but I think they'll be okay. And now we're getting to some that are falling over, unfortunately. So I'm gonna show you how we take care of that with a bamboo stake and a ring clip. So I'm just gonna put the bamboo stake through the rock wool, down into the bucket a little bit, and pull up the plant to the stake. And this is a ring clip, it's just a simple piece of plastic. And I'm gonna put it right around the plant and the stake, and that's what holds it up. Normally we have to do this process to every plant while they're still in the transplant house, the starter house. As you can see, we have several falling over. We'll just leave them like that until we're done transplanting the entire row, and then we'll come back and fix the ones that are falling over. But I think a lot of them are gonna stand up for us today, which is good news. All right, I'm gonna show you how I plant this rock wool cube with a plant in it into the Dutch Bato bucket. But look underneath the bottom of the cube. See all those roots that have been air pruned, which I've talked about many times in other videos. It's a nice, healthy plant. You just wiggle it into the rock wool. Come on, stay up. It's thinking about it. And that's it. Just give it a little wiggle so there's good contact with the bottom of the rock wool cube and those roots with the perlite. Now we're gonna come back afterwards and put in the stakes, the dripper stakes. But they will just go in like this, right into the rock wool cube. Hey, maybe we can use the dripper stakes to help hold the plants up. There we go. You can see I'm keeping the same pattern in the buckets, this diagonal pattern, because last year they were planted here and here. I have used perlite from last year on the bottom 3/4 of this bucket. There's only fresh perlite on the top couple inches. So it's kind of hard right down there. So if I move them to the opposite corners from last year, they'll have more fresh perlite to send their roots down into. I like to have a little room between the cube and the edge of the bucket for this drip line to run right down the center and not really get in the way of the plant or the cube. And I don't like them to be touching either. So kind of just right in the center of the bucket on each corner. There's one that I won't plant unless I absolutely have to. One of the main reasons that's important to have good contact, not only for all the roots to get into the perlite so they can fill this Bato bucket, but when these plants reach the cables and we have to lower them and lean them, it's going to be pulled that way, and it's a lot of pressure on that root, that cube, to want to pull out of the perlite. So if we plant this cube like that, and there's a little bit of space there and not good contact, the roots might not get down in that perlite like we want. So we want a good, strong contact right there, just like holding ability of the cube to the perlite. That way when we are pulling these plants or leaning them, it doesn't pull out of the perlite. Sometimes I've even seen the buckets almost get pulled over like this. There's so much pressure being pulled. But it should equalize, because this one's being pulled that way and this one will be pulled that way. So it should balance out. All right, we just finished transplanting 615 plants, and we were 12 plants shy. Usually I have 40 or 50 extra big, beautiful plants that I just have to throw out. I have potted them up and sold them at farmers markets before, like 4-foot tall plants with golf ball sized tomatoes on them. But this year we were 12 plants short. I do have some small, ugly plants left over that will probably stick in those buckets. I would normally never plant something like that, but they still look pretty healthy. At least that one does. So I think it'd be better putting one of these in versus one of my later plantings, because I think these will still be ahead. Anyways, we are currently putting the drippers into the rock wool cubes. I'll show you how we do that. So every woodpecker dripper has a hose on it with a dripper stake on the end, and we're just sticking them into the rock wool cube, kind of right into between the center and the corner. And we make sure the stake is straight up and down so the water will not fall off of the stake and miss the bucket, which I've seen happen before. Sometimes you got to twist the hose around to get the proper tension on it so it stays in right. And as you can see on that plant there, it has fallen over, so we will have to get some bamboo stakes and ring clips and walk through here and prop some of them up. You can almost lean them on the drip lines and they'll stay up, but they'll probably still fall over until we get the strings pulled down. So pretty simple process. Just go down the row, pop them all into cubes. And right now they are just getting fed straight water. I have not mixed up my fertilizer recipe yet for feeding these plants. I'll be doing that after lunch today. But right now we just want to make sure they get water on them, because these cubes will dry out quickly. This dry perlite, since it hasn't been pre-wetted, will wick the moisture right out of the bottom of these cubes. So it's critical to get water flow into them right away. But they'll be fine without getting fed a fertilizer solution for an hour or two until I come out after lunch to do it. And every now and then we come to a dripper that does not have a hose on it. So in a case like that, we'll just skip this cube and not put one in here. I'll go get a hose and a stake, attach it, and put it into the cube. It's easy to mess these up. If you're not paying attention, you'll accidentally skip one, and then you gotta go remove every single one down the row over one to make up for the one you skipped that I just about did right there. But Emma caught it. We are almost done. Just finishing up this final row here, and then it'll be lunchtime. Oh no, we gotta do the bamboo stakes and ring clips first. Fortunately, a lot of them are standing up. All right, so far so good. Everything's going according to plan. As soon as we get all these dripper lines put in, I'm gonna go in and take a lunch break, then I'll bring you out here and show you a little bit of how I mix up the fertilizer recipe. All right, I just arrived back out here to the greenhouse after finishing lunch. I have already mixed up our fertilizer recipe for feeding the transplants. I'm gonna hold off to show you all those details of everything I have in there and how I mix it up, how much I'm putting in of everything for a separate video, because there's a lot of detail involved in mixing our recipe, and that could definitely be its own video. But I am gonna show you real quick the fertilizers I put in and how I'm lowering my pH. All right, this is our fertigation area for feeding our plants. This is the mixing tank where all the items are mixed and ready to be fed to the plants. There's 2 fertilizer tanks and a pH down tank, and we use sulfuric acid for lowering the pH. We buy it by the drum. This is a 15-gallon drum, and I was just looking at the number on there, 66 degree. 66 degree sulfuric acid, which is like 93% strength. So it's about 3 times the strength of what you would get at an auto parts store. So in tank number 1, you can either call this tank 1 and 2 or A and B. There is calcium nitrate, potassium nitrate, and iron. And they have to be kept separate from what's in this tank, or they will form a precipitate and it will clog everything up. And this tank is a little bit more potassium nitrate, sulfur of potash, monopotassium phosphate, magnesium sulfate, which is just Epsom salts, and a liquid micro mix that I keep in there. So all those items are proportioned into the blue mixing tank via these 3 bellow pumps. And I will talk more about this in detail, like I said, at a later time. We'll make a video dedicated to mixing the fertilizers and sulfuric acid. I've already made 2 videos on all of this already. I'm gonna put those down in the description box if you wanna check those out now, if you're wondering how much of everything that I'm mixing here. Attached to my greenhouse is our little storage room. This is a little sprayer that we use if we need to control thrips or aphids or spider mites in our greenhouses. This is a year's supply of fertilizers. Some of it's duplicated because this is all new that I bought this year, and this is left over from last year. So we have potassium nitrate, magnesium sulfate, which is Epsom salts, sulfur of potash, monopotassium phosphate, calcium nitrate, and I think that's everything. And another jug of micro mix concentrate for tomato. I'm currently standing in the storage room looking out into the greenhouse. Everything has been transplanted. The bamboo stakes have been put in with the ring clips on the ones that were falling over. Next week we'll be hanging tomato hooks, the strings, and dropping the strings to connect to every plant because these things will grow fast. Here in a couple days they'll start growing several inches a day. It's amazing how fast they grow and will reach the trellis wire. Just a couple weeks and they will be there. I'll just walk down through here and let you look at these. So we have a lot of scrawny plants in this middle row because we were running out and we had to use some of the ones that we normally don't use. These over here look pretty nice. This is Geronimo. And you can see here I ran out of plants. First time in 20 years I have run out of plants in this greenhouse. I'm still baffled at why I had so many small plants that were kind of behind the others and just didn't grow well. Fortunately, we had just about enough, but yeah, those few buckets back there, I'm not sure what I'm gonna do there yet. I might put the second planting that's looking really nice. They're about 5 or 6 inches tall. I might stick some of those back there or just put some of these scrawny ones that I have up front left over back there just to finish it off. Over here on the outside 2 rows are Torero. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed the tomato transplanting process here in greenhouse number 1. We still have 4 more greenhouse plantings to go, as well as 2 outdoor field tomato plantings. So lots of transplanting to come. This is just the very beginning. But I think this is where we're gonna wrap up today's video, folks. As always, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the content, and I'll see y'all again real soon down on the farm.